everybody. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. The space that I'm crazy about, as you know. And like I said, I want to thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time on a Saturday afternoon. You know the drill. Hop into the comments and say, hey, where you're tuning in from, while I make sure everything is operating as it should. Make sure, like I said, you're letting me know again where you're tuning in from, so I can give you the shout out that you so richly deserve. We are here each and every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live on the YouTube channel, the Facebook group, and the website for the show, and LinkedIn. But I always encourage everybody to get plugged into the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube at Don Terrell, subscribe, hit the bell notification. That way you get notified of when great content goes up on the channel and the show goes live every week. And definitely want you to be a part of the community. Like I said, I come from a large family, so I like a large family. So we definitely want to welcome you into the Color of Motion family. Also, want to thank today's sponsor for the show, DG Graphics. They do all our graphics, animations, overlays. They basically make me look good. So if you are a business or a brand that's looking to level up your brand content, create engaging content that connects with your audience, then definitely reach out to them and give them a call. Miss Granny, I was just thinking about you earlier today. What's going on, Miss Maggie? Appreciate you stopping back by. Hello. It's been a minute there. Hope everything's going well that way, for sure. What else? Man, oh man. So much stuff going on. Like I said, I'm super excited about today's show. I've been looking forward to it for a while, ever since I connected with my brother, and definitely cannot wait to sit down and dive into his journey there. I think I got pretty much all the housekeeping stuff kind of out the way. If not, we can catch up. So let's get this train on the road, hey? Yes, we are back and ready to get rocking and rolling. Like I said, I'm super excited about my next guest. Super talented, as you probably tell by the show ads that you've seen all week. His work, amazing work. So it's going to be a fun conversation. So let's dig into this. My next guest, a seasoned conceptual illustrator and product designer with over 19 years professional experience in the toy and product development industry. His passion for toy design, fantasy art, and character development has kept him up with design trends and pop culture. He has led design and development teams across a broad spectrum of brands such as Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, DC, Subway Surfer, Killer Klown from Outer Space, as well as Nickelodeon's #1 brand, Spongebob SquarePants. Most recently, he is founder of Red Raven Studios, specializing in animatronics, consumer products, toy designs, and new IP development. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Carlos Mendoza III.
What's up, Don? How are you?
Hello.
That was such a great intro. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh man, hey, when you have that extensive of a background, it's very easy. So, like I said, thank you so much for coming on. One, like I told you before, thank you so much for connecting in the first place.
Of course.
But
No,
thank
thank
you
you.
for coming on and sharing, your journey. You're an amazing artist.
Thank you,
And
Don.
you've had an interesting journey. We were doing a little talking before the show. So kind of, just a little, people synopsis in your own words of who Carlos Mendoza is.
Yeah, I mean, well, thanks again for having me, Don. I really appreciate it. And again, yeah, like you said, it's been a anticipated week of promoting, but I've been waiting for this for months. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and so it's great to be here. And thanks again for the invite. Yeah, so I've been doing toy design. Basically, it's been my entire adult professional career. It's been yeah, a little over now. I calculated not too long ago. So I'm already like hitting like 22 years plus. It's been a while. I've been in the industries for a while. I've been doing toy designs. Again, like you said, I've been fortunate to work with some really strong teams. With not only leading the teams, being a part of them as well. From LucasArts to you name it. I've been working on a lot of different brands. It's been great to the journey has been really fun, and I've been really fortunate to work with some amazing projects along the way, mainly licensed projects and stuff. So that made it a lot of fun because I got to work on a lot of stuff that was takes me to this very nostalgic place.
Yeah.
As a kid, growing up with with Star Wars, or growing up with some Marvel characters and things like that, I was able to do a lot of product for that as well. So yeah, it's definitely been a really fun journey, and and even tapping into the animatronics world as well. That was a lot of fun as well when I was back at my previous job, and now that I'm able to do it full time for my on my own with with the awesome clients I got now. It's I get to just continue moving on, moving that nostalgic and kid like imagination that really kind of keeps me moving forward. So I really appreciate that that opportunity to do that, especially providing for my family, doing that,
Yeah.
still even after I left my previous job at Spirit. And I'm able to continue doing what I love to do, and now I do it on my own time and terms, and that's always, I guess, something that's that's it's a blessing in itself. So I'm grateful
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, no, and we're gonna dive a little deeper into the animatronics and and all of that. I want to kind of stay on the toy side because obviously I love toys.
Let's do it. Let's
And
do
I'm gonna bring them into the scene here. As you can see, I keep my toys.
it.
My GI Joe. I was a big GI Joe collector back then, and like I said, I love toys. What were those kind of toys? Kind of when you were growing up, and me and my sisters have these conversations all the time about all the toys we had. We wish we'd have kept.
Yeah.
And I think about now or back then. You said you're in your 40s.
Yeah.
Get ready to turn
48.
48. I'm a
I'm an
little
old
bit
guy.
older. So I don't know if you kind of remember, but it seemed like in the early times, obviously toys were like kid safe. When you think of the toys, when I think of the toys that we had back then, they weren't kid safe now. So, what were kind of the toys that you enjoyed growing up with, and kind of the changes that you've seen over the time that you've been in it?
Well, I think when I was a kid, I was born in Nicaragua, and so when I came here, I was 3 years old, and so I think that learning English and learning how to adapt with the kids in my classes and stuff, especially not a native speaker of English or whatnot. So I had to kind of learn from their likes and what was popular with them, and what got them talking or whatever. And so a lot of stuff, like for me, was a lot of TV shows like the A Team.
Mm,
I was very big in the A Team and Airwolf, and shows like that I was very into. And a lot of action packed stuff. And so when I got into toys, like I remember there was a time where I bought my dad had bought me a Mr. T doll. I
yeah,
was big on Knight Rider. So again, all those like really cool action packed
yeah.
TV shows. And so A-Team was one of my favorite shows. And, and I remember my dad had bought me a Mr. T doll, and that was like my absolute favorite doll. I shouldn't call it doll, it was an action figure.
Action figures.
So for us, it's action figures, not a
For
doll.
us,
It was
they're
like an
action
figure.
figures.
So I had this Mr. T doll, and or figure, and I remember that there was this bully in my neighborhood, and he saw, it was like, Debo from Friday. He just
Yeah,
rolled up.
yeah.
He just rolled up, and he's all like, he just rolls up in the midst of everybody. He's like, "Yo, what you got on my phone, homie?" Like it was just like, I was just, oh man. So he saw my Mr. T doll, man, and I felt like, I just felt like, dang, man, this is the end of it, man. So he snagged it from me, and I never saw him. And you know what the funny thing about it was, that he actually went through like the wall, like he went through like this crack in the wall, and I never saw him again. I never saw my figure again. So
Wow.
that sucked. And I was very, very reluctant to buy expensive figures or toys, because I figured I'd always get, I would always have Debo come by and take my toys. So that's what we're gonna call him, by the way. We're gonna call him Debo, because that's the guy who keeps stealing my stuff. Took my chain and everything.
There's a Debo in every neighborhood.
There's a Debo everywhere. Yeah. So yeah. So what I started doing is, like, I started collecting GI Joes, Thundercats. I started collecting a lot of just like action figure,
Yeah.
characters, and I was very much big on He-Man, those type of characters. And one that really stood out to me a lot was, too, that I played with a lot, was Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
Just
Very
characters that
simple
were
toy.
like very simple. But I like playing with a lot of different things like that. And so I used to have a duffel bag, because again, I wasn't letting Debo take my stuff this time, so I kept everything in a duffel bag. And then every time I would play, he wouldn't see toys. He'd only see this duffel bag, so he didn't know that there was a stash full of toys in this thing. And if he only knew that all my toys were stashed in that bag, I would have been jacked for everything. So
man.
I had to keep him away from it. So I was very cautious on how I played outside. And yeah, it was just, those kind of like Saturday morning cartoons. I was starting to collect like Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling back in the day with Jimmy Snuka and all the characters I would play with. I had the wrestling ring, and when they were all rubberized, and you would crash them together. I was just a typical kid, just played with a lot of fun stuff. And I was real fortunate. My parents weren't very financially well off, but I think I was really blessed to have them sacrifice enough to where they gave me a pretty fun childhood, growing up. So I was really, really blessed by that. So yeah.
No, awesome for sure. And definitely always interesting. For you, have you seen just this in the toy industry? People thinking that it's not as big as it is, or as lucrative maybe as it is. When you talk to some people, do they realize how big the toy industry really is, or lucrative as it is?
I don't think I don't know if, like, when I say regular people, I mean like civilians outside of the toy industry. I think when you look at toys now, they're definitely absolutely different. And the sad thing about our toy industry, and I don't know if I'll get flack for saying this out loud, but I think it's partly true. I think it's like, a lot of toy industries have become a lot more like copycats. So there's not a lot of originality in toys. A lot of the dolls do the exact same thing. You know what I mean? A lot of the figures do the same exact thing. There are a few handful of designers that have broke out and did their own toy companies that have done some pretty amazing, but they're few and far between. You know what I mean? And so, but when you're talking about big corporate toy companies, I feel like a lot of them have, when you've seen one action figure, you've seen them all. So there hasn't been really much, involvement in that area. So I think, when you see the independent toy makers, a lot of which are good friends of mine, I mean, they do some amazing work, and I'm just like, man, I wish you guys went, full mass production on these. But of course, the volume, it demands a lot, and the finances behind that demand a lot. But I'm really proud to see a lot of my good colleagues and good friends of mine that have taken the independent approach and have been pretty successful, and some just do it for the love of doing unique items. But to answer your question, it's like, the toys have evolved to, I think, devolved, I should say. I mean, when we were playing with toys back in the day, obviously the cost of things were much cheaper, so you were able to get a figure for very cheap. And he was, like I said, like, let's go back to the Mr. T doll or the figure, right? He would have a full suit. He'd have his chain, he'd have a jacket, he'd have his accessories, he'd have the whole
It
deal.
like even these, after
Like
a
exactly,
while,
like
they
that's exactly
started
how the figure was.
shrinking the GI Joe dolls down the
Yeah,
size after a
yeah,
certain period of time. That's why, like I
yeah.
said, the toys have just, you know, like you said, the cost of things
Cost
obviously
is
makes a
yeah.
big difference.
Cost is always going to be the main factor on all this stuff. And I think that, depending on, again, nowadays in this economy and even in this kind of market, it's very difficult to find toys that are, like right now, when you say, you go to the store and you buy an action figure that used to cost you, $4.99 when you would pick up the GI Joes at, $3.99, $4.99, little blister packs of GI Joes. Now you're talking about, anywhere from like 12 to $17, or, I've
Yeah,
seen some that were like $24 for a
24.
regular action figure. So, it's the market's gone, kind of hard to keep up with this financially, because people either, they they're very selective now on what they want to collect now, because they can't do everything because it's so expensive. So some
Yeah,
people are migrating to just one specific particular style. Like, for example, like Funko, people went nuts with Funko, and they just collected this little
yeah,
bobblehead looking thing, and they went nuts over it. But I mean, you're talking about, simple character, nothing crazy. But I mean, but then you're talking about characters that are very like unique. Like, here's my buddy Mondo did these new characters he did, and they have these really cool, like, these cool
yeah,
features
yeah,
that
yeah,
you don't really see very much of this sort of stuff, in some of the market stuff. So I don't know. Like I said, it's changed a lot, and so I think people are very cautious on where they put their money. And so some of us older guys, at least for me personally, I like to collect stuff that, some of my friends are doing, because I
yeah,
support, independent artists. I'm a big supporter of artists, and I don't I've been pretty fortunate to like not strain when it comes to the cost of them, because I know what it costs to make it. So
make it, yeah,
supporting them is very important. We should all support each other,
yeah,
whether it's a book you release or it's a toy you're designing. It's
yeah,
important to support our local artists and stuff, because
yeah,
again, they're the ones that are keeping the toy industry interesting, and
yeah,
when you go mass market, again, you see a lot of the same stuff, so it's very competitive to hit, when you go to shelves, you kind of are competing with almost the exact it's almost the same stuff you're
yeah.
seeing on the shelf. So it's different for sure.
Well, do you feel like that big shift is going to come from the independent creator, as opposed to, like you said, the big ones that, and this, it seems to go across not just toy industry, but film, animation, and all of that. It seems like the smaller independent studios and creators are the ones that are making these big shifts and big changes in the industry. And I always say, especially during this time, because we got all these great tools now, like you said, toy makers, they got affordable 3D printers where they can
That's
make,
right. That's
they
right.
can
That's
print out
absolutely
their
right.
stuff and things like that. Talk about like this time that you see that we're in, as far as creators and the things that we have available to us to create and get our idea out there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's important for every designer to feel like they can create on their own. You know what I mean? And I think that, they're the ones that are the bold ones. They're the ones that understand
Yeah,
what it takes to do something really creative without the influence of a marketing team or a salesperson or whatever, or even like your boss when they're telling you, hey, we want to do this, and you're just like, dude, but that's gonna look ugly, or that's gonna look wonky, or whatever.
yeah,
Because the creatives know, but sometimes creatives, we get into our own heads and we think it's going to work, but we got to remember that we're selling to a mass market, that the buyers or the what's it called, the salespeople might know a little better in that area
yeah,
what sells better for them. So for that case, we have a little bit more restrictions and some some red tapes you got to kind of get through. But an independent, man, it's like, if you're able to do it independently without infringing on any of your contracts. I mean, I always encourage all my friends to put a book out, or create your own content, create your own toys, do your own stuff, because that's what keeps our industry like healthy, and keeps our creative endeavors, or creative, what's the word, like our inspiration, whatever inspires us, we're able to
yeah,
put it out on our own with our own voice. And if we lose that due to corporate influences, then you just become another wheel in the, whatever they call the cog in the wheel,
Clogging
whatever
the
in the
wheel.
machine or
Yeah.
whatever. So, and so you don't have a creative voice in that aspect, you know, and especially in the corporate world. I mean, obviously we all have to make money, we all have to do what we got to do, and that's respectable. But if you're allowed to, or even if you're, you know, because some artists are not allowed to do anything outside of that, which is
Yeah.
again respect. You got to respect your boundaries within your contracts. But if you can, and or you're an independent person already, just freelancing, man, I encourage everybody who's independent or that's freelancing to do your own stuff, because that's how you really learn about, you know, what you can really do. I have friends that are doing independent work, like my friend Mondo and Cheeto, and there's a few others that are, you know, are well connected doing their own thing, and it's such an encouragement, you know what I mean? Brandon Gerald is another guy that did Geeky Tikis, and there's a few guys that are very inspiring to me, that I see them, you know, doing their moves and they're doing their things, and I'm really excited to see old friends of mine really pushing their boundaries and testing grounds to be more independent and financially, you know, um, um, what's it called? Like, you know, they're investing in themselves, you know, and
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
Oh, well, it's interesting because, like I said, I think as more artists kind of get into it and start to see, like I said, the value of owning their own content and controlling their own
Yeah.
content, and I think that seems to be obviously the thing now with everything going on with the industry jobs. You know, people, artists and creators are starting to do their own things. You know, the even though it's not a new thing, the big news with Ryan Coogler owning, getting his rights to his film back after
Mm,
a certain period. Just this thought and notion of, now I can go directly to my audience, you know, through
yeah.
online, and build this big machine and
Yeah.
build as big as I want,
Yeah.
type of thing. Are you seeing the, I guess the industry, the standard, the industry, what's the word I want to use? The industry giants or the industry old school ones, are they
Mhm.
leaning on kind of known IPs as opposed to risking these new toys, like you said, that independent creator? Is it hard for the independent creator to kind of get into the bigger studios? And what do you see as some of the challenges that independents are facing when it comes to approaching getting into a bigger studio, if that's their thing?
Well, I think there's like two things about that. So one, it's like if you're able to go independent and work with a team or a financial partners that can support your vision. I pretty much I'm kind of falling in that camp right now, so I can speak on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find a team that can support the vision and you guys can work together contractually or legally binding, you know, contracts, whatever, to do all that stuff together, then I would probably encourage to go down that route rather than giving it to a big corporate company that can take over and possibly. I've seen this before where I've designed stuff and they've shelved an idea and they don't
Mm,
ever release it
yeah.
out. So, and there goes your dream, there goes your vision that could have been something awesome. And so I always encourage people to just try your best to do it on your own, if you possibly can. To your point about the 3D printers earlier, I have friends that 3D print a bunch of stuff, and they go sell it in conventions,
Yeah.
and they do pretty well. I mean, they do pretty well. And also too, that I've done independent, like I said, like you know, or like Cheeto that teams up with other people, or Mondo that, you know, went through a Kickstarter to get started. And so I think those are the things that I think a lot of bigger companies are not taking risks on as much because they don't know what the audience is like. I think again, we're dealing with a different mindset from mass market to collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Collectors seem to be a little bit more interested in, and again, their purchase dollars is a little different than the average consumer. You know, where somebody would buy a toy for $200, you know, versus a mom that's at the Target and Walmart that's only has the 9 to 15
Yeah.
bucks maximum for a toy. You know, we're talking about two different audiences here. So I don't know if the corporate world has truly, besides Funko, I guess, and companies like that that have done those kind of collectible things that have really hit a mass market with like a kind of like a risk taking
Yeah.
of a toy. But I don't see very much in that in the corporate world, I don't think. But I do, like I said, I do see it in the independent world. So I don't know if I really would like to see the two collide, because corporate will always be corporate, and
Yeah.
corporate will always crush the dream of the visionary, right? No, it's a
Yeah.
truth, because to them it's the bottom dollar, and if the
Yeah.
bottom
The
dollar
bottom
doesn't make
line is
sense,
dollar. Yeah.
yeah. So at the end of the day, the independent person might say, you know what, this will cost me X amount, and I only wanted to showcase it in a certain audience. But mass market says, no, I need to make, 3-4 million dollars off of this IP.
Yeah.
So where you're looking at just to just get your name out there, or just produce enough to where it'll keep the momentum going for your next project. So there's a little bit of two different schools of thought there. And again, corporate, like I said, if you were to bring your idea to corporate, yeah, I'm sure it'll blow up. I mean, just like Steven Hillenburg with SpongeBob, where Nickelodeon buys SpongeBob out, and now they farm that thing out. He's totally licensed
Yeah.
$1 billion, whatever amount is,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But again, it's such a in our industry. I mean, if you gave a corporate company an IP of every artist that has an IP, I mean, we'd be flooded with so many different things. But the chances of somebody taking a chance on you,
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta real. I mean, there's a lot to consider, a company taking a risk on you, especially for that sort of stuff. Like, Steven Silver is another one that did that same thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Butch too, with with all the stuff they did with Nickelodeon. And I mean, that stuff is cool that they were able to share these fun ideas, like Impossible and things like that, and be able to make that a success. And so again, there's a lot to those pitches that a lot of artists, again, independent artists, I don't think we're prepared to really, or actually know the business side of things, to where we want to learn the business to not get gypped or anything, you know what I mean, when it comes to that stuff. Because there's a lot of legalities, there's a lot of
Yeah.
contractual things we gotta get through, and a lot of artists are just content with just drawing and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
They're not really business savvy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of artists just kind of get hung up on that part, where they just think that that's as far as they can go. And that's why I tip my hat to the Cheetos and the Mondos and those guys that are just doing some really independent stuff, because they're really trying to push their voice out there to people, and building their own fan base and stuff like that. And again, whether they become their own Spin Master, or their own, Mattel or whatever, that's upon their desires to go that far. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I
Yeah.
don't think that I don't think that none of them. I think that they all can. It's everybody can. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of, are you willing to take those chances and risks, And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that, again, to the fact that what I'm saying, speaking for myself, like I said, when I design stuff too nowadays, it's like I'm designing stuff for my own IP stuff, and I feel like I want to control that. I don't want corporate to get involved, and I don't want to go to Jack Pacific and go, hey, I got this idea for you, and then at the end, I think
Yeah.
throughout my year,
It gets
yeah, I think
changed
throughout my
along the
my
way.
yeah, I think throughout my career, and I could probably say this for a lot of artists that are out there, a lot of them have made probably some of these corporate companies millions of dollars, millions of dollars.
Oh
And I
man.
think, at the end of the day, you still got to go to work, and you got to, follow suit, and again, that's you gotta make ends meet. So, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you just gotta either stick independent, or go corporate. You know what I mean? They're just two different beasts.
Yeah, yeah. And I always say that too. Yeah, this is a great time we live in. You have all these
Yeah.
tools to take
Yeah.
yourself as high as you want to go, but it requires a lot of work on your part to
100%.
get there. So that's where, you have to decide how high you want to go. Do you, like you
That's
said, do you
true.
want to be a big Mattel? Or are you happy making toys, selling your toys on Etsy,
Yeah.
or your Etsy store, or making
Yeah.
enough? So
Yeah.
that type of thing, for sure. I want to make sure. Oops. Todd Animation, I feel that for sure. I think we were
Thanks,
talking
Todd.
about the independent route. Green light yourself. Yeah, I'm a big
Yeah.
proponent of green lighting your, especially your
Yeah.
own ideas. I mean, if you want to,
Yeah.
do work for hire, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to your own stories and
Yeah.
ideas, typically, if you're going to shop it, they're going to change it
Yeah.
to, make it palatable, what they think is
Right.
palatable,
Right.
or it might be. So
Yeah. I
we
think
talked a
that's
little.
what I, go
No,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Now, I was gonna say that just to close that out, it's just like you know, for me, it's like I balance. Red Raven is basically that. I'm balancing out IP development for my own studio projects, which is going to be into the toy world. I'm trying to get into more of that for the sake of putting out something independent for myself. You know, and again, I'm not going independent in the sense that I'm going to just sell a couple items. I technically would like to go into more mass market, but as far as like putting food on a table, obviously I have my clients that I work with and I satisfy their clients, and I got my designers that I work with that I hire to do some of the projects with me. And so there's a lot of movement that's going on to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
But on the back end, it gives me time while they're working on projects, I get to turn around and work on IP stuff with my China team and and all my different people in different countries that I work with. And so I'm able to maneuver both sides of the fence a little bit, just because I don't want to just keep making somebody money. I need to bring something for the studio so that I can also, be able to sustain the studio
Yeah.
financially, like
Yeah.
for sure. And that'll be on our creative voice, not on somebody else's IPs,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And I'm
Yep.
sure there are other, like I said, creative itches that you want to scratch,
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
things that you want to do, which is
Oh
why,
yeah.
like I said, I find even the ones that are working, even my friends that are working at studios and
Mm,
have the 9 to 5 jobs, most of them are working on their own stuff, their own
100%.
project or own thing, because it scratches their creative itch that they don't get particularly scratched at work, as far as their own ideas and
Yep.
things like that.
Yeah. And Don, you know what? That's a good point. I think, if I can say this out loud, man, I mean, I'm not tied to anybody, so no one can, I can say this because I'm not in
Say
the
it.
corporate world right now, but I can say this right now is like, I would encourage any artist that's out there working in corporate. I mean, you can just hear me out, but I mean, the true reality is like, you're working for somebody for your 9 to 5, but I mean, you should definitely put some time for you and build your creative voice, because at the end of the day, I mean, they're not bound to you at all. I mean, everybody's replaceable, and I've seen it many, many times. And in fact, in the near, just in this this just right now in this era that we're in right now. I mean, you see a lot of layoffs going on and all this
Yeah.
craziness happening, and a lot of artists of friends of mine that are not prepared to have that creative voice, because they've been voicing someone else's vision, and so you should always, and I will encourage everybody, have some time for yourself. Like, really make time for yourself. I mean, wake up early. Take that time to invest in you, because at the end of the day, when you end up on that line of unemployment, or you wind up in that layoff line, then what do you got? I mean, you got to go and run and get a portfolio ready. You got to go and do this. You got to go do that. But if you have something already established and you're just like brewing something slowly, you can jump back into that and say, okay, I'm going to try to see if I can launch this or whatever. And
Yeah.
then listen, it could be your portfolio getting fixed up. It could be your website getting updated. It could be whatever it is, as long as it's invested in you. That's the key thing, because at the end of the day, any company, I don't care which one it is, any company can say, listen, we're not doing well this year. This is da 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 da, and all of a sudden you get that yellow package from HR, and then you got to go. So
Yeah.
it's happened to me many times. It's happened to my colleagues many times. It's happened to just pretty much everybody I could think of. So,
No.
and I've seen those that are prepared, and I've seen those that are they just been,
No.
blindly just drawing and working, coming to work 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, and not invested in themselves. And like I said, it doesn't have to be an IP. It could just be your portfolio. It could just be updating artwork, just new skills that you've learned, and update your portfolio, your resume. Just keep things a little bit polished as you go along. No one's saying you're leaving. No one's saying you're going anywhere. It's just keep yourself invested in you,
Yeah.
because you just never know.
Yeah.
Stay relevant as well on social media, on LinkedIn. Be posting. Say some. Just let people know you exist. It's important. It's helped my career a lot. A lot of people were like, well, how do you know so many things and people? But, well, get involved with people, get involved in community, get involved with the
Yeah. Get
industry,
off
and
the phone and
yeah, get off
get off your
scrolling.
phone and
And
get
listen,
involved and get active with
and listen,
people.
I'm guilty, and I'm sure that if my friends watch this, I'm sure they know that I send them memes and videos all the time. Like, I'm relentless at it. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's like, I do spend a lot of time with myself and my art, my craft, and so I definitely have plans that are looking awesome. And I'm proud to say that I'm able to do those things, you know what I mean, on my own time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
give yourself time. Love yourself, man. Love your, you know, your future, and give your future self something to work with. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just a
Now,
little something.
great advice. And always on great bombs of advice. I drop bombs.
Right
But
on.
that is a great piece of advice because most people, most creators that I know, and even financial people will tell you, you don't depend on one revenue stream. You got to have
100%.
multiple revenue streams. You got to have,
100%.
because if one dries up, then you got something else coming in. So most of the creators I know, they've got a lot of different things they're working on. They're not just maybe depending on one revenue stream that's bringing in all the money. You know, they've got sponsorships, they've got courses, they've got
Yep.
this, they've got
Yep.
that going
Well,
on, all kinds of things.
yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier, is like, you don't, if you're tied to a contract and you cannot, you know, draw for another company, or you cannot do something, then volunteer somewhere. Like, give your time away to kids and do something that's helpful to the community, because then that also goes in your resume as well. That's an upgrade to yourself as well.
Yeah,
That's self-improvement on yourself, to be able to teach children, to be able to help people, and whatever it is, just give some time out for community, because again, there's always something to do, and then just sitting around, just letting some company just take your
yeah.
time. And so anyways, invest in you. That'd
And
be a
you
good
never
thing.
know what opportunity might come out of
100%.
that that's greater than the job that you're at. You know, so that's what I mean as
100%.
far as, being out there, putting yourself out there.
That's all right.
It
That's right.
opens you up to opportunities that you just don't know about,
That's right.
and connects you with people that you may not have thought that you would get connected with, for
That's
sure.
right.
Mr. Greg, great point. People need to hear that, and they will if they're watching that. This will if they catch the replay.
So,
If they
Greg.
catch they catch the replay, they will as well too. Tell your friends for sure to be checking this out. All my guests have great bomb drops that they do. That's why I have them on. All my friends.
Right on.
Uh,
Right on.
it's the Tom Todd animation bomb drop. Hell yes. I think I'm gonna do like a mic and get a mic animation
Mic
and
drop.
just do that. Yeah, mic drop
Yeah.
type of thing. So I'm working on it. How did you kind of transition? How did you even get into animatronics? How did that step from illustrating, and I'm pretty sure you started illustrating and drawing from there. How did you even transition into animatronics?
Well, it's a funny story. And speaking of LinkedIn, again, I'm just I got credit LinkedIn on this one, because so what happened was, I was working on SpongeBob SquarePants production, and so for product, and I was finishing up the series, and I was starting to post some monster stuff on LinkedIn. And again, I do it all the time. I post a lot of monsters. Um, I don't know why. I think it's because I wanted to go to Blizzard Studios, Blizzard Entertainment, for a long. It was one of my passions. I wanted to go
Yeah,
there, and that's another story for another time. But I got so into it that I changed my style so much that everything I was drawing was monsters. And so I became this kind of like monster, like I got into it so badly. So everything I was posting looked very Blizzardy. It had this kind of really
yeah.
hard, grungy look. Anyway, so I started posting a lot on LinkedIn. And so after a while, one of the directors at Spirit Halloween was like, hey, we like your stuff, and would you be interested in joining our team? And I go, yeah, that'd be cool. And for me, I've always been a Halloween fan. I've loved monsters and stuff for the longest time. And and then they said to me, well, would you come in for an interview? And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to. Didn't realize, like, that it was in New Jersey. I'm a Cali guy, so I was in
Give me a
California.
minute. I'll
Uh,
be there.
yeah, so I was like, right in a second, I thought, that'd be, but I didn't know it was in Jersey until after she mentioned it to me that it was in Jersey. I was like, crushed it. Like, I was like, man, this is messed up, because this is like a dream job to even consider.
Yeah.
And anyway, so long story short, they flew me out. I had said yes to it. And they told me what I'll be doing. So I'd be the art director of animatronics, and I'll be leading a team of, like, I think it was like six or seven guys, I think it was. And so I'd be the team lead, and they like my designs and my characters and stuff. So I come from toys, so I had to just design big toys. So now they're bigger toys. So I utilize a lot of my techniques from toy development to action figures to actual animatronics. So So when I moved there, I had to move to New Jersey. So I brought my whole family to Jersey, and it's funny because like I had also an offer to go work at it was an art director position at Netflix, and they had
Oh
offered me a
wow.
job at Netflix to be an art director for product development, and very very like I was like, whew, I mean, it was awesome. It was a good offer, and but I had already said yes to Spirit, and I just wanted to honor that, and I just said, I'll and they said, well, stay in touch, whatever, blah blah blah. So anyway, that went away. So came to Spirit, went here for, I learned so much in the 5 years I was there, and picked up a lot of do's and don'ts. When I first started doing animatronics, I started drawing everything like Blizzard because that's what I was kind of used to. So all my monsters look like these big giant orc looking
Yeah.
armor everywhere, and everybody, and the guy Carl that was there, he was like, dude, this is expensive, you're not gonna be able to pull that off, so it's too expensive. Everything I did was too expensive. So I had to retrain myself. I had to retrain myself on how to design for this customer, because
Yeah.
this is a big gigantic toy, and he moves, and he has audio and all this other stuff, and so I had to kind of like come down a little
Bring it
bit in like
down.
my
Yeah.
understanding, because now I had to go back up into a different understanding of what this is. And so um it was a very humbling experience, because I thought I knew what I was going to get into, and I actually didn't. And it was a whole
Yeah.
different monster, and no pun intended. And I actually learned a lot, and so I learned what I needed to learn. Now I applied my skills in art and my techniques in character design and development. So I put that into play, and it became pretty awesome. So, but after a while, it just got to a point where I just felt it was time to go. I think I reached my plateau there, and I think that it was a good run. And yeah, I started Red Raven Studios right after that, and then again with clients that I work with now, it's amazing, So being able to work with the companies like Lowe's, and other companies which I can't speak of right now, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of companies that I'm working with that are in the mix, and that are having a good time, developing new stuff and toys, and outdoor stuff, and so I'm just having a good time being versatile in a lot of things now, so I don't get bored with just animatronics. But
Yeah.
animatronics is just it'll always have a special place in my heart, because I build a good small fan base with the community, the haunting community. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, but again, it's I don't want to be known as the monster guy, the animatronics guy,
Animatronic
because
monsters
I'm a
guy.
little more, yeah, I feel like I'm a little more than that, but I truly needed to branch out, because again, I think I reached my creative,
Creative ceiling
as far
there.
as you can go there. Yeah. And it just got to a point where it's like, yeah, there's no more growth here. And it was time to go. I mean, it was just, they understood, and, I had to move on. So,
Yeah.
I wish
And
them all the best. So,
I want to
yeah.
dive a little deeper into just that thought. But before we do that, let's take a look at some of Carlos's deep, dark monster work. No, he does amazing work.
Thank you,
And we'll
bro.
come back in a minute and dive a little deeper into some stuff.
Answer on the beat.
Amazing, amazing, amazing work.
Thank
You
you.
spoke a little bit about there was a kind of an adjustment for you, and you learned a lot. After leaving there, what was kind of your biggest lesson that you learned during that period of time?
One of the lessons that I learned is like straight up was like be a good listener. Um, it's like sometimes your pride and your a lot of us artists think that because we've been there, done that, it's like this is a whole new genre. And so I think being a good listener and respecting those who have, they came before me, and I was able to like learn a lot instead of just being a know-it-all and like, oh yeah, I know, and I know. It became more like, oh, okay, I see, I see, okay, no problem. Oh yeah, okay, I'll try that. And so it was a little bit more of me trying to be more understanding of the genre, a little bit more, help me to really get to what this really is. It's not a toy. It's a whole different thing from sizing a costume to it, how it sits on the body, how
Yeah.
the framework is, how the motion is, how the motion tells a story. So there's a lot to think about in an animatronic that you don't think about in a toy. Like for example, a toy, if it's a licensed toy, you know what it does already. If it's let's say it's an action figure for Halo, for example, or some whatever character. I don't know, I just brought Halo up, but let's say it's a whatever character, right? So you get this character and he's part of a licensing, right? You already know what the character is. For example, if it's let's say it's a Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, whatever, right? And you're doing an action figure, you already know that he
Yeah.
comes with, either a machete or a knife or,
Yeah.
whatever his thing is in the
Hockey
movie. You go to the
mask and all
movie.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know it already, and it's already done for you. Well, an animatronic's a little different because when you're doing a non-licensed animatronic, it has to come straight from your brain, and which could be a little exhausting because you have to be competitive and tell a fun story. You gotta make sure that his movement, his audio all coincide with the whole story that you're trying to tell. And that story has to fit within the customer's desire to want to buy it. Like, for example, like you don't want a character that is like a giant bird guy that's green and he has antennas and it's just a creepy monster or whatever. No, you want it because where the hell are you going to put it at? Right. So where would you put it?
Yeah.
So the thing is that you got to come up with a character that suits a particular theme, whether it's evergreen, like a zombie or a witch or something like that. Well, now the question is, how interesting are they? What is their story? What's her backstory? Is she a woods witch? Is she is she like a fortune witch, like a fortune teller witch? Is she more like a lures you as, like almost like a Hansel and Gretel kind of thing? Or so all these things start rushing through your head to think about what exactly is my story? What do I want to tell? What do I want to creep the people out with? And you only have about a little bit of time to do it.
Yeah.
So either people will get it on the first vocal or on the first motion. For example, if you trigger it and it startles you real quick and you're like, whoa, you're instantly hooked and you're
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is great. But there's some that are just like they're very subtle, but they look so amazing. You're just like, I want that.
Yeah.
That's just dope.
Yeah.
So you have to find that balance and find the customer you're trying to reach, you know what I mean? And so it could be a little bit, daunting as far as like, what you have to do to create that. So being, versatile in your designs, whether you're a creature monster or you're you're like a spooky monster, and then there's like a, very subtle kid-like monster like stuff that's more playful, whimsical, whatever.
Yeah.
Tim Burton like, you know what I mean? So you're borderline creepy, but yeah, you're whimsical. And so there's a lot to think about when you're designing an animatronic. So I think I had to listen to the community. I had to listen to what was doable. And so I took a lot of advice from my predecessor. And so, or was it my predecessor, the guy who was before me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Predecessor. Yeah.
his predecessor, yeah. So I had to learn from him a lot, and he definitely schooled me on some things. And again, it had to be one of those humble moments because it was more like, well, first off, you don't know what the hell you're doing or talking about. So it's like, so here's what you need to do. And so I had to listen, and I actually became a better designer for that. And I don't know if he knows it, but Carl, if you're watching, I do appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you,
But yeah,
Carl.
so yeah, Carl's dope. So I think that's one of those things where, like I said, it's being a good listener, and I think it helped me tons to be a better designer, especially in the animatronics world. So now when I work with other clients, I'm a good listener there too. What are their needs? What type of customers do they have that they need to satisfy?
Yeah.
And it's not the same as Spirit. It's not the same as this other company. So everybody has a different need, and everybody's customers are completely different. So That's where, again, that versatility and understanding and listening and also bringing your creativity or suggestions to what might be unique to your audience is key. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh. Miss Maggie, I love it, love it, love it. Mr. Dwan, appreciate you tuning in there. Greetings, Don and Carlos. Greetings
Hello,
there,
hello.
Dwan. Appreciate
Hello.
it. I want to ask you, because when you're approaching brands or are brands, when you're working with brands, are they already in the mindset of they want to use animatronics, or are you having to kind of talk to them about how they can use animatronics, or are they already approaching you wanting to do something using animatronics?
It could be a little bit of both. I've seen both. So sometimes they'll come and say, "Hey, you guys are doing great animatronics. We'd like to work with you on, these licenses or whatever." Or we might just go after them and be like, "Hey, we love to do, I don't know,
Yeah.
like a Freddy Krueger or whatever. We would like to do, you go to whatever, and you go talk to them and see if they're willing to open up a licensing program with us and then include animatronics as part of our licensing." So it just depends. I mean, it's like I said, sometimes you're fortunate to have that license and they include that into it, and you can offer to do that type of product for them, and they just include it in the. And if you're, like I said, there's some people that are just, that might not be that great at it, and I don't know if they're able to get the license or that added to their license. But it's a I don't know. I'm not too versed in that area because that has never been my field. But from my understanding on a few things that I've currently worked on, I think it's been the case on that point. So
Well, and just to be clear, because when I think of animatronics, I guess I'm thinking like, I don't know, Disney ride,
yeah,
it's a small world type of thing. But when
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking animatronics, you're talking at a kind of a toy size level. Are you talking about an experience that the brand is doing somewhere that they want an animatronic for? That's what I mean. When I think of, and when I think of animatronics, I'm thinking of amusement park, type of animatronics, or some type of function that a brand is doing that they want an animatronic type of aspect to it. You know what I mean?
Well, there's obviously toys that move and have articulated motions,
Yeah.
that are actually battery operated, almost robotic
So
kind of
those would
things or
be
whatever.
considered animatronic, like battery operated
Um,
toys, or that's what I
yeah,
mean.
they're just toys, yeah, animated toys, whatever, animatronic
Okay.
toys, whatever. But animatronic, technically, from where I'm at, is
Yeah.
more for like what you would consider like the theme park stuff, just not as elaborate.
Experiences.
Uh, Yeah, so it's an experience. So you're basically giving somebody an experience or an interaction with something. For example, like there's like interactive toys, right, that do that. Like for example, like the new I forgot who put it out. I went blank right now. But anyways, they released a new Transformer,
Mm-hmm.
Optimus Prime and a Megatron. And when you talk to it, it actually transforms and it
Transforms.
becomes a
Yeah.
robot, and then it turns into a battle tank or whatever, or a truck. So those are like, those are more like interactive, animated animatronic servo
Okay.
motors.
So
They are animatronics. They are like robots. They basically are robots. Um, but the animatronics that I'm talking about come with like a gearbox, and so the gearbox is not necessarily a robot. It's more like again a motion gear, which is almost like what you would see like a windshield wiper, like a motor, that just goes in a circle like that. And that triggers another motion to move the arm out.
mm,
And so it's just one motor moving one thing to cause one thing to happen. The other thing is like it's spring-loaded mechanisms, and so they're not necessarily electronic. They're just more like motor, like what do you call it, like gears and
like a pop up. I get what
yeah,
you're
they're like
saying. Like
spring loaded,
spring
yeah,
loaded. Yeah, I get it's like a Jack in
yeah,
the
injection
Box
mold
type
stuff.
of thing.
Correct. Versus like the Transformers, where they're actually servo motors and robotics that understand the intelligence of whatever it is.
Yeah.
So they would say, hey, their voice command, and then they respond in this kind of
Mine.
way.
Yeah. I
Well,
got you.
animatronics work in somewhat similar way, where they are activated by infrared, And so the infrared light, when it's broken, it triggers their activation, so it allows them to do or say whatever it is that they need to say. So it turns them on, and that's how they interact. Versus, like I said, there's been some that have been voice command where they're like, "Hey, blah blah blah," whatever, and then they would say some people have done where you actually put the microphone in you say your stuff, and they it's a voice changer and they say stuff. Or so there's a variety of different tricks to an animatronic. You see them in Chuck E. Cheese as well, where they're actually just like, they're
Yeah.
like almost like robotic, or they're playing a guitar, and it's just like, they're just
Yeah.
simple motion, nothing out of this world. It's just really just more for kids. And it's more like you said, almost like theme park magic, where, I mean, not as elaborate as the new, Universal Studios monster, where those guys are just like full blown, like I mean, animated like a real person.
Yeah.
Or even the Disney Imagineering guys, where they do some really amazing stuff. But this is more on a basic frame, basic, 1 to 2 gear motors, that sort of stuff. And so, I mean, it just depends on what it is you want to do, but it's more simplistic than the money is really spent on the tooling for a lot of this stuff. And it's, you get 1 head, 2 hands, and some shoes, and then the rest is all fabric on wires and cable and metal frame. So yeah, I mean, there's a big difference in that. So hope I answered your question. Do I know I went on a
Yeah,
tangent?
you
I don't even know.
did. Yeah, for sure. Mr. Wayne, what's up,
What's up, Wayne? How are you?
Carlos? Mr. Wayne Anderson there.
You know,
Appreciate
Wayne
you.
Anderson is amazing. This is one of my favorite sculptors. He's a good buddy of mine.
He's a ZBrush
Yeah.
sculptor or actual?
Oh,
Well, I'm pretty
hand,
sure-
actual.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
And
Wayne, we may have to connect and
This
talk
is this
there.
is a Wayne this is a Wayne Anderson I bought one. Look at this.
Oh, yeah, Wayne. We're gonna have to talk and maybe get you on the
Yeah,
show
Wayne
too,
Anderson's
there,
awesome.
Wayne. So connect with me on LinkedIn, Wayne. I'm gonna connect with you, Wayne. We're gonna get you on the
He's
show.
a good dude.
Do some
He's a
awesome
good
work
dude.
there,
Yeah,
for
he's a good dude.
sure. Kind of where. So, how are you seeing and viewing the industry now as it pertains to what you do? Looking into the future. Now we're getting like AI. How has AI, if anything, impacted what you're doing, and providing? And where do you see the industry of toys and animatronics within this space that you're in the future, say 4 or 5 years, kind of down the line?
It's a great question. You're starting to see a lot of AI coming through on some stuff, but maybe not as much as you would think. But like Distortions recently, well, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, I think they released Dr. Quantum, and that thing was super scary because it had a camera and it had AI, Chat GPT in there, and I think it was like you could speak to it, it
Wow.
understands you, and it communicates with you, and all kinds of crazy. So, that's where the world's going. I think people are going to start really doing some really interesting things with animatronics. I mean, I think um, I don't know if that's going to go to mass market. I think that's very expensive. I think, and so I don't know where that might go. But I think for the most part, I think the challenging thing now is to really compete with one another. There's a lot of competition in animatronics. Everybody's trying to do very unique, characters. I mean, um, of course, I can't speak too much on certain things that I'm on right now, but I
Yeah.
think for the most part, what I'm seeing in the market right now, it's kind of been there, done that kind of thing right now. So I'm very curious myself to find out what the market starts bringing out, because again, I think everybody's exhausted what the possibilities are for the motors that we use, the pop-up mechanisms that they're using. It's pretty much everybody's using the same stuff. So there's room right now for newness. And so
Yeah.
whoever reaches that mark, I think is gonna really kind of set the standard moving forward. So I'm really curious to see who's going to innovate, because right now I feel everybody's reached their now with the tariffs and stuff and all that craziness going on. It's like
Yeah.
there's definitely a change in the way people are going to start buying and things like that. But as far
Yeah.
as AI goes and technology, I mean, there's definitely room for new tech, but I don't know if the price points and the money that people are willing to spend on some of these things are really there for mass market. I'm talking about the Lowe's and the Home Depots and the Spirit Halloweens, and I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for them in particular, but I can definitely say that the market is, they're not really ready to start paying, $600-700 for an animatronic that they put out for a couple days out of the
Yeah.
year. They're happy with the 250s. They're happy with the 300s maybe if it's really cool. But when you go above 300s, you start kind of getting people getting all squeamish, and they don't want to
Yeah.
pay for it. So
So how
so
do
adding new
you?
technology is going to be tough.
Well, so how do you, as a business, and trying to survive and stuff, approach and show the value of what it can do for your brand? I mean, I guess like I said with every brand, you decide what price point you want to fall as far as, do you want to be premium, or do you want to be affordable or whatnot. Obviously, 250. Say you're saying like 250. They're expecting 250 for an animatronic. I don't know whether that's good or bad. As far as work, I don't know. If you would want to be doing bigger animatronic projects or whatnot. But how do you kind of balance when talking to a brand that is saying, well, $100 or $150, could you do us an animatronic or something like that?
Well, I think the shift in location now, I think it's starting to become a matter of fact. You know what I mean? It's starting to really um, open up opportunities for other countries to step into this world where they're going to start competing with costs and things like that against China. So I think that some costs might go down. I don't know. I haven't really looked into too much of that, but I know that with now with this tariff thing that happened, I think it really rattled a lot of companies. It rattled a lot of factories. I saw it firsthand when I was in China. I was in China for a month, and I was able to see a lot of things there that now with the tariffs, I think it really shook a lot of people because of the investments that have gone on. So I'm just thinking that I hope that, I don't know if prices will be more competitive. I think so. It'll allow for new tech or new stuff, but it just, again, to answer your question, it's like it depends on the customer as well too. Like I cater to everybody in a more of a la carte needs. I don't cater them to like, hey, here's what you should do. It's more of the like, I need to understand your business and like your community or your audience or people you're trying to you address. Whether some people are going after the kid like demographic, which does a lot more whimsical characters. So I approach it to a more like, how can I be more creative with whimsical without it breaking the bank, but also doing something unique that can set them apart from the other competitors that are doing the whimsical stuff. So that's the sort of stuff that I like to bring to the table, is to bring a little bit more of that unique twist to their approach. Because sometimes when you're doing animatronics or doing anything in general, you're basically basing it off of something that you've been doing consistently. But now you have so much competition that everybody's doing it consistently the same. So it's like, now your market, like for example, clowns, everybody does the same clown: skinny, tall,
Yeah.
striped pants,
Yeah.
jumpsuit. It's the same guy. He has an axe or he has a knife, and he has, an angry face. His brows are like this, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just the same thing over again. So the question is, how do you make it different? How do you
How do
like
you reimagine it
how
into
do you
something?
reimagine it? And also, yeah, not just the look, but how do you reimagine a story? Like what do you do there? And also let it fit your audience that you're trying to go with. For example, like if it's a whimsical clown versus like something like Home Depot or one of the bigger chains that does more scarier, obviously they're going to be two different clowns, but how do you make them unique and different on their own? And so and that's the challenge for me and the team I work with now. It's like, how do we really bring uniqueness to it and actually be competitive and let people be wowed by every single design we put out? So that's where we're challenged as Red Raven, is to we bring unique styles and unique looks to stuff, and I think that's what's been setting me apart in the studio, is like to setting what I've been bringing to the customer, is that unique twist. You know what I mean? Because again, I might have a twisted mind. I come from the old tattoo world, and some people have asked me. They ask
He's
my wife
all
sometimes. They're
tatted
like,
up, people.
yeah. Sometimes they've asked my wife. They said, like, how do you sleep with this guy's brain at night? Like, this guy's at night, and he's like, his mind's just going off with all these crazy things. But it's just, the reality. It's like, I've been brought up, the tattoo. I used to do tattoos, and I was around that culture, and also graffiti, and so I've been in the street art style
Yeah,
for
yeah.
in my childhood and stuff. So so I got to be around a lot of crazy things, and so I'm able to bring some of my even my childhood um like my childhood nightmares that I've had when I was a kid. And so I get to reimagine them into something that's a little bit more positive. I wouldn't say positive in the sense they're scary, but they're positive in the sense that they're not as scary as I saw them when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and so I had a teacher in college that well, not college, but one of my classes that I took, his name is Christian Gossett, good friend of mine. And Christian I took his class one year, and I remember he challenged me one day, and he said, write down or draw your most scariest memory of your life. And I drew my aunt. She used to be into Santeria, which is that kind of like that voodoo ritual kind of weird
Yeah.
Santeria stuff. So when I was a little kid, my mom, she used to work early morning, so she would drop me off at her house like at 4 o'clock in the morning before she went to the
Mm.
to the factory. So she would drop me off at my aunt's. And so when you go into this room to go lay down, she has this red room where there would be like candles and lights and all these like Santeria
Oh.
stuff everywhere. So you're talking about a little kid, you go in there and you're just like freaking the heck out. Like you're like, man. So I started drawing all these things that I remember vividly from that. And it was a very scary thing for me. So um, but when you put that into product, it does tell a story because you know that story firsthand. You've experienced, you're the director of that particular vision. So you were there visually seeing that firsthand. So I'm able to take those scary visuals and implement them into like a character, whether it's a specific jewelry that one of those characters had in her room, or the red fabric that used to drape. I put him on vampires, and I get a lot of little things like that. So I think it really just kind of brings some unique twisty kind of mental stuff. And again, I'm not all messed up or anything like that. I'm not saying I'm all jacked up in the brain, but
Yeah, yeah. Well,
but it's definitely
every artist and creative person is a little on there. It's different. I
yeah.
do
So
want to touch base though on, because we did talk about it, before the show, and you kind of alluded a little bit when you were talking about younger and stuff. But you talked a little bit about just your background and the potential of you had a little running, said you had a running with the law, and potential to go down a different path. And I was
yeah,
telling you about my friend Andre, and just what
yeah,
he's
yep,
doing and stuff. But I wanted
yep.
you to talk about one, just that your upbringing and just that potential of going in the wrong direction, and then two, kind of how you help to keep others like you from going down that same kind of path that you could have went down.
Hmm. Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was into I was in the graffiti world, and I was part of this crew who was during that time there was a very what they would call tag bangers. I don't know if all my LA watchers or listeners are listening, but tag banging was a big thing in the 90s in LA. And so I was part of a crew that got recruited or got merged with 18th Street of LA. And so 18th Street is a pretty rough gang in LA. And so what happened was I refused to join, and I was just not, but
Mm,
I did some stuff I shouldn't have been doing. And one year, one of the times we were there, I actually was taken up to one of the freeways, and I was so, yeah, we're just gonna go and just mob the whole freeway there or whatever. And so I went along. It was me, and my cousin, Minus, and we were just there, and we started riding on this freeway, and then all of a sudden, we saw the cherry top, and we call the cops. They would start chasing us. They started chasing us. So we got away, but then we thought, well, we'd be brave, and we just keep doing it. And so we kept just destroying the freeways like really bad. And one day we were supposed to go to church, and we actually got our cans in our backpacks, and we put them behind the church in a bush. And while they were supposed to go to the classes for the kids, we took our backpacks and we went to a school, and we just mobbed the entire school. And then we got a citizen's arrest on one of my friends, and so he got caught. He was a heavy set guy, so he couldn't run as fast as us. So the next morning, long story short, next morning we ended up at the police station because they knocked on my door as I was going to school. and they arrested me there at the house in front of my mom because he ratted on us. And so I actually got caught, and he told on all the locations we went to, and they had pictures, and it was just bad. After we sat there, I had to go to juvenile hall, and yeah, long story short, they assigned me a mentor. It was not a mentor, a probation officer. And that probation officer pretty much was like the dude who kind of changed my whole direction. And so he told me that he had joined a program that I was in school, and the program is called the Business Academy. And so he joined it without me knowing I was in it, or at least I think he didn't know. And so they had a banquet to meet your mentor at the banquet. And so I go to the banquet with my mom, and so he's sitting at the table with my name on it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, what are you doing here? You're in the program too? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in the program here. And I was just like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not and he's all like, well, I guess you guess I'm your mentor or something like that, he said. And I was like, oh gosh, dude, how is this possible? I'm like, you must have set this up. And anyways, fast forward, I had 100 hours of community service, and I was in trouble and stuff. I had to go back to report to the courts, and um, he had talked to the judge, and all the stuff that I was doing is okay. This kid's good. His grades are going good, and blah blah. So they took me off. I didn't have to go do any type of jail time or whatever, prison time, I don't
Yeah.
know, juvenile hall time or whatever you call it. And he said to me one day, he goes, you know what? He's like, how about we do this? I can't be your mentor and your probation officer at the same time. And so how about we do this? He goes, how about you let me take you to Disney Animation Studio in Burbank, and then I'll show you. I have a friend there. I'm going to show you what you can do with your skills rather than you writing on walls and vandalizing the freeways and all that stuff. So I said, okay. I said, to me, all I was hearing was like, yes, he goes, and if you do that, I'll cut your community service. 100% you did them all. I didn't have to do the whole year. I'm like, all right, cool. So excited. So then I was like, all right, cool. So I told my mom, got permission, went to Walt Disney Studio. And when I walked out of that place, I was not the same. I was not the same person ever again. So I went back to school. I told my cousin Minus, I'm like, listen, dude, I'm out, dude. I don't want to be a part of any of this no more. And he goes, yeah, but you got to talk to this dude and blah, blah, blah. And you get jumped out and this other stuff and gangs. And I was like, listen, dude, I'm not going to do any of that. I don't want to do any of that. So I'm just telling you, I'm not doing any of that. So he's like, bro, let me at least talk to Saran, blah, 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 these things or whatever, all these things were happening.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing is that week, Saran got killed, the guy who I was supposed to go
Wow.
talk to. He gets killed. And then I said to him, I'm out. Please understand, I'm talking to no one. I'm out. I'm not doing this no more. I'm not completely out. So after that, I started doing art. I went to Art Center in Pasadena. Couldn't get to finish. It was too expensive. And yeah, just that was pretty much the history of how I became wanting
So
to do
did you
professional.
speak to somebody at Disney, or what was it,
Yeah.
specifically that you saw on your tour through Disney that just, man, this is it. This is it. This is what I want to do.
Well, yeah, I did. So one of his friends was one of the, I think it was a
Okay.
director
Yeah,
of
you said
animation
one
or
of
something like that. Yeah, so one of his friends was a director of animation or something like that. So I got to see some of their storyboards, and some of the characters look like graffiti art characters. They look like, like animated characters. They look very
There you go.
elongated and big hands and the whole. And so I forgot what it was that I saw in the walls, but it was just so much artwork everywhere, and I was just so like, I want to come here, like I want to be here. Fast forward, my career, I actually got to go work with Disney in some fun projects and stuff. So that was kind of like cool. But that's what changed my whole perspective. Is he told me, look, dude, he goes, you can go to school, learn this and that, and you can you can come work here, and I was like, what? And now it just became reality for me. And so after that, it just became something that I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it became my drive. I wanted to sit where he was sitting at. I wanted to work somewhere where this guy was making money doing what he was doing. So I came home to my mom. I'm like, I got to go to school. You have no idea. This thing was cool and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, go. Like, I didn't
Gotta
realize
do
how
it.
expensive, I didn't know how expensive Art Center was, but it was expensive. But along the way, like I said, I ended up just honing in my skills, and I just met some great artists and designers that were in the same journey as me. And we learned from each other, and I gained some great friends out of this whole thing. And, and now they're still friends to this day. And I never looked back. I never went back to graffiti. And even to this day, like I said, I talk about graffiti all the time, but it's just one of those arts that never left my heart. Like it's always
Yeah.
been a part of me. So when you see
Yeah.
some of my style, some of my monsters, you'll see graffiti in the
Yeah, it
background. You'll
has a
see art.
graffiti background, and
Yeah.
a lot of people will kind of maybe dismiss graffiti as an art form or an art style,
Mhm.
but it really is a unique, just like tattoo art is. I
Yeah.
love
Agreed.
tattoo art, and
Agreed.
I used to love watching. What was the name of the show? Tattoo
So Ink
Wars
Master,
or
yeah,
Master
Ink Master,
Tattoo or
Ink
Tattoo
Master,
Master or something like that. But it
Ink
was a
Master, yeah, Ink
challenge. That
Master.
was really cool. But you see
Yeah.
some super talented
Yeah.
artists
Yeah.
that make some amazing
Yep.
tattoos, and
Yep. Yep.
like
Yep.
I said, I always compliment people when I see a well done sleeve. Especially
Yep.
like a sleeve that's well done.
Yep.
But such great work. So, but do you find that that's something that you're having to kind of and do more with when speaking with encouraging youth
Like troubled
not to get
youth?
in trouble, troubled youth not to get in trouble. Like I said, you come from a neighborhood, that wasn't the greatest neighborhood in the background, and heck, you can't even get out of a gang without just saying I don't want to be in it no more type of
Don't wanna be
thing.
in this no more. Yeah.
Type of thing. So how do you encourage others that are kind of, or you can kind of see they're in that position that where you were and kind of headed down that path? So what are the things that you kind of look to do to really kind of encourage those youth that, like I said, are in disadvantaged and areas?
Well, I mean, I started the Artists and Social Club, and that was a club that I started solely for that purpose, is to help kids that felt left out of opportunities. And so the Artists and Social Club was a very successful, I feel very successful endeavor as far as like teaching and mentoring students that couldn't afford college or that didn't have the right people around them. Like, fortunately for me, I had really, really strong people behind me that were very like, nope, don't go that way, go this way.
Yeah.
Nope, go here, go there, go. So I was very fortunate to have that. And I think that kind of sped up my vision to where I needed to go. Some people, for example, are taking, art classes and they have no idea what illustration really means. I've asked, I would say about out of 100 students, I would say probably 80 of them have no clue what they're in school for. Maybe more. I'm being generous. And the majority of them that I speak to, they don't have a clue what they're doing. So the Artists and Social Club I started just so that they can understand exactly what I've been through as a person who can't afford school, a person who had to drop out of art school, and a person who didn't have a clue what they were learning. Like I didn't understand what illustrations were. I had a teacher that was teaching me about media illustration for magazines. I was like, I don't want to I don't want to do that. I don't want to draw for a dictionary. Like that was my teacher. He was teaching us to draw for dictionaries. I'm like, I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
And look at now, where's a dictionary? Who owns a dictionary? If I followed this guy, I would be out of work right now. I don't even know. Like I was so the thing is like I quit the class. I actually ditched and I started going to the cafeteria. And the cafeteria had these Korean kids there. There was like kids from like a different country or whatever.
Yeah.
They came down. So it was like a group of them, and they would draw these robots and mechs and all kinds of cool stuff. They were always sitting in there drawing stuff, and I was like, man, that's so cool. And so I really thought about, like, hey man, I want to learn what they're doing. Like that sounds really cool. And so I really started kind of getting familiar with friends and people, and I met Ruben Martinez from Marvel, and Joe Benitez
Yeah.
from Top Cow Comics, and like all these guys that were just so like I looked up to them, and now I got to work with them on t-shirt company with them, and they were like, I saw their work through what they were doing on t-shirts, so I was like, okay, well I'm gonna follow what they're doing. So I started drawing t-shirt designs. So I started following people who I admired and starting to see what paths are they taking, until I finally figured out, I don't want to do comics, so I don't want to do any of that. Like that sounds boring to me, and it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so I decided not to go down that route, and I saw how much hard work it took, and that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just didn't want to devote my time to comics, and so I didn't do that. So then I started just kind of like just drawing tattoo stuff and getting into tattooing, and eventually I ended up, working for a toy company, which is another crazy story. I mean, super crazy. That's probably the craziest thing ever.
I want to
But
hear it. I want to hear
You
it.
do? All right.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'll give it to you real quick. So I used to work at a Christian bookstore, right? And I used to work in the music department. It's where I met my wife, by the way. So I used to work at this bookstore, and there was a janitor there named Raul. Now follow the thread here because it's gonna get super crazy. So Raul used to work at the bookstore, and he was a janitor. So he lived across the street from this guy named Sergio. And so Sergio, I'll talk to him about him later, but just remember the name. So Raul lived across the street from Lino, the guy that I just told you that I was drawing t-shirts for. Do you remember the t-shirt thing I was telling you about? So I started drawing for this company called Color Block, right? And he was the owner. So Raul and Lino lived across the street from each other. Okay. So I used to draw t-shirt art for Lino while I was at the bookstore. So I used to draw almost like freelance work. I would do some side work for him,
Yeah.
for like schools and bands and all this stuff, whatever. So I would do that stuff. Well, one day, uh, there was this guy that I used to know. His name was Dion, and Dion used to go to church with me. And Dion called me one day and said, "Hey, my friend, my friend Kevin wanted me to put in my circle of friends to pray for him because he's getting a brain surgery done." And so he said, "Okay, cool." So Dion says, "Yeah, let's pray for him." Blah, blah. So we kept him in our little prayer circle, and so then again, didn't know Kevin, didn't know who he was, and so then turns out that Kevin also drew for Lino. Okay, so that was a thing that I didn't really realize till later. Anyways, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. So then Sergio comes to Raul's house one day, and Raul is his brother-in-law. So Sergio comes over one day and says, "Hey, um, um, let me get that story right." So so he comes to Raul, and he gives Raul his business card and said, "Hey man, I know the guy across the street has artists or something like that." He said, "Give him my card and see if his artist is interested, because I'm looking for an artist for this company I'm working with, and so I want to get an artist. See if he want be willing to talk to me." So he gives it to Lino. Lino gives it to me. I look at it. I'm like, Jada Toys. Holy cow! So what I did miss in the story was that at the time I had left the bookstore. I had gone to go work at Mercury Insurance. And so when I was at Mercury Insurance, I used to collect these cars, these tuner cars, like these race cars and lowriders
Yeah.
from Jada
Oh
Toys.
wow. Yeah.
So when Lino gives me the card, it says Jada Toys on the card. And I'm like, no way. So I'm like, that's crazy. So I call him up. I'm like, all right, cool. Hey man, yeah, this is Carlos, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Hey, we'd like to get you in for an interview, blah, 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 blah. All right, cool. I'll be there. I go there. Anyways, I go there and I bring my portfolio. Absolute atrocious portfolio, by the way. Yeah, I remember I was not trained. I dropped out of school. I don't know how to put a portfolio together. So it was just like taped pieces of paper on stuff. It was the
Yeah.
worst thing ever. They told me later it was like the worst portfolio they've ever seen.
Wow.
And so I go there to the interview and I meet this guy named Kevin, and Kevin's like, "Hey man, good to meet you, whatever, let's check out what you got." So we were looking at the stuff. I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, so yeah, your portfolio, bro, like it's obviously you can draw, but do you have any experience doing stuff?" And I go, "Well, I was hired by my friend Dion. He told me to help him paint some stuff for Space Jam one day, and I was just there to help him out with this job he had. So I was doing that for a little bit." He goes, "What do you mean, Dion? My friend Dion used to do that, Dion Williams." I'm like, "Oh, you know Dion Williams?" I'm like, "Shoot, I know Dion Williams." He goes, "Yeah, he goes to my church." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, that's my best friend," he said. I said, "Are you Kevin, the one that we prayed for the surgery?" And he goes, "Yeah, bro, that's Dion." Blah, blah,
Oh
blah."
wow.
I'm like, "Holy cow, dude, that's crazy." So then we were just talking, whatever. Well, I don't know what happened during the brain surgery, whatever, but he had a hard time hearing. So he had asked me if I knew Illustrator, the program. And I said to him that I'm an illustrator. So he heard that I knew Illustrator, the program.
Yeah.
So he hires me with the notion that I knew
You
Illustrator.
illustrator.
So I'm like, great. Shaking hands, they come in, they make me an offer. I'm like, dude, I'll take it. Because it was like maybe like $10 more than I was making at the insurance company, whatever. It wasn't even that much. But so then I go to my insurance company, I quit my job, I go work for Jada. I get there on the first day on the job, and they're like, okay, cool, you're gonna be working on this new car. This guy's Jaime's, we've been working on it for a while, blah 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 blah. So so then he's like, here, you're gonna be drawing on this tablet, and then you just use your vector and just do whatever. You start working on it, come up with some cool graphics. I'm like, all right, what is vector? And what is this? What is this tablet? So he gives me this tablet. It was a Wacom tablet, and then he says to me, he goes, so you draw on the tablet and it comes out on the screen. Now keep in mind that I've been drawing with markers and color pencils my whole entire time. So I'm like, you mean to tell me that if I draw on this tablet here, it's gonna come out on that screen there? And he's looking at me like I'm talking about like supernatural magic or something. I'm like, this is the craziest thing. I said, wait a minute. So okay, so now that I know that that's what this does, so what is a vector? And he's like, you don't know Illustrator? And I'm like, what's an illustrator? What's Illustrator? And then he goes, didn't you tell me you knew Illustrator? And I'm like, no, dude, I am an illustrator. And he's all like, he put his hand in his face. He goes, get in my office. So I get in my office, and he calls the VP, and the VP says to him, he goes, what did he say to him? He goes, oh, yeah, something, Carlos, blah, blah, blah. This thing happened, yada, yada. And so he goes, you know what? Give him a week, and then he's got to go if he can't come up with anything. And I said to him, I go, dude, I am not going back to the insurance company for nothing, dude. So I just quit my job. I'm not doing that. So he goes, well, then you got a week, bro. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I wish I could. So my buddy Glenn, he heard what had happened, and he was such blessed. Glenn, man, he's still been a friend to this day, and he's still a good friend. So Glenn gives me a book called Photoshop for Dummies, or he gives me some books of like how to learn Photoshop like overnight. So I called my friend Randy, and I said, Randy, I go, look, dude, I got this problem, man. They're gonna lay me off, dude, if I don't produce. I don't know what the vector is. I don't know what Photoshop is. I don't know what any of this is, dude. Like, can you help me? And he was already working on t-shirt art for bands for giant merchandising. Yeah. So he was already working on this stuff. So I go, Randy, you need to help me, bro. So and he goes, okay, I'll be at your house tonight. I'll bring my stuff. I'll show you what it is. That was on a Friday. So then on Friday, he came over. He brought me a printer. He brought me the small translucent blue Wacom tablet. I'm sure yeah. So I remember that, and so he brought that. He brought me his laptop, and he brought me a monitor. I had nothing, nothing. So he brought everything for me. So he goes, okay, I'll give it to you for the weekend because I need it for my work for the next week or whatever. So I'll leave it for you the weekend. You can test it out. I go, okay, so what is a vector? And he goes, okay, a vector is a vert. It's a vert. Verts are these little vertices. And that's how basic I had to learn. Wow. I didn't even know what a vert was. So a vert, and then when you click on here and you hold down shift or whatever it is, a command, it'll stretch it out and you can bend it. And I'm like, what? Is this for like drafting? What is this? So then I said, okay, so what is Photoshop? Okay, Photoshop is based off of pixels, and pixels are blah, 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 and the resolution, yada, yada, yada. So this is more photography for cleanup. Okay, got it. So he left me with the basics of basics, and I said, okay, I'm gonna use with what I got. I have no other means because I know nothing else. So my wife was so kind. She kept the kids outside the door because I was in my room. I was drawing my drawing room, and then she left them out, and she kept passing me sandwiches through the door. Door closed, sandwich in your whatever drink you have there, and you just go in your room. And so I learned how to take photos off the internet. I think the internet was very young at the time. Yeah. And you're talking about 2005, I think it was, somewhere around there. So I started getting stuff off the internet, and I started figuring out how to pull and stretch things out. So I got a Lamborghini. Man, if I knew we were going to talk about this, I should have showed it to you because you guys, I still have it in mint condition. I did a yellow Lamborghini. I changed the colors on it. I changed the rim colors. I put a barbed wire graphic on the side of it, so it looked like a barbed wire on it. I did another one that was a tuner car with some lightning bolt across it or something like that. It was the silliest thing ever. I'll show it to you one day. And then so I printed it out. I printed like 3 pieces of paper out that I done vector art on, and I've done a Photoshop on. Those 3 pieces. Printed it out. I took it to the director there at the time, and I said, here you go. This is what I did over the weekend. I kind of learned what it was, and he's all like, so you did this over the weekend? I'm like, yeah. I go, dude, I had to learn Photoshop Illustrator in the weekend. So so he goes, okay. So he showed the VP and he's like, okay, he can stay. So then after that, I
Just learned
became,
on yeah.
I just became, so after that, I just, I really, no, I really applied a lot of pressure on myself to really
Yeah.
become the best I could become. And so, I reached to a certain point where I wanted to grow more. And so I went to Spin Master after that. I got to work on a video game. So it just became like a snowball effect of fun stuff afterwards. I never looked back and I never went back to insurance. And that was
Oh
the end of
man.
that.
Yeah, that is a wild story and definitely goes into necessity is the mother of invention. You will
100%.
you will
100%.
find a way. 'Cause actually,
100%.
I actually had I kept my job kind of that same way. I was freelancing, and just a freelance. I was working for Ashman's Super Sports, which was like a big sporting goods chain. But I was working in their advertising department, doing paste up. But at that time, like I said, I'm old school. At that time, they were doing paste up by hand. They were cutting out. We were pasting up on boards, physical boards, taking the boards over to the camera department, having them shoot it, and they make plates. They were doing production the original way when I started. And then I would, freelance for them every Christmas because that was their busy time for the newspapers, Christmas ads. But they closed down the divisions out in California, and they were using computers to do their design work. And so they asked all the freelancers, does anybody here know how to use, Quark Express and Photoshop and, all that stuff? I didn't, but I lied. I said, yeah, I know how to do it. Because I needed to keep my job. And you just learn on your own. You just got to do it. You just pick it up and learn on your own. I didn't go to school for Photoshop. Anything computer, I didn't go to school for. I just picked up on my own or learning from somebody else. And truly, when your back's against the wall, you do find some creative solutions to get you through.
It's funny because one of the most key kind of really, really accomplishments that I feel I came across in my career in 2019, I was nominated Toy Designer of the Year by my peers. So it really was a testament to it really was a testament of all the long hours and the support I got from my family. And like I was telling you earlier, I had to sit my kids, and so sometimes they ask me oh, you had 4 kids during that time, 4 kids running around from 2 to 3 and 5-year-old, and then I had an 8-year-old, and I had kids back to back. And so sometimes they ask, how did you manage to accomplish that as a father of 4? Some is, I only have 1 and that drives me crazy. And how do you pull off 4? And I'm like, and so what I would
was just talking to you earlier about just, we were talking about your wife, and I was just asking her, is she in the industry? And not, it's definitely finding that right person when you're a creative and, you're a business owner and entrepreneur and this and that. It's key. So finding the right mate that's going to support you and the thing, like you said, I don't know how many, well, maybe the ones that really love and support will slide a sandwich under the door for you. But that's what I mean. They understand that you're doing what you're doing, and they support that in whatever way they can as a spouse. That's crucial when you're trying to build something, to have somebody there that's supporting you through all of this stuff, because you wouldn't been able to do it, I don't think.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. I think, like I said, it's and not to say that we haven't had our rough patches. There's every relationship has
every
them,
relationship does.
There's and I think the key thing about it is really kind of honing into when you kind of lose track of the focus on what the goal and purpose is for each other's support, that's where things get shaky. But as soon as you realign again of what you guys intended for as far as your vision and goals, I think it kind of gets back together and get things right where they're supposed to go. I think that had to happen because obviously we were thinking about 2 different career paths. She was doing one thing, I was doing the other, and then who gets the most support, and what about the kids, and who and we weren't ones to leave kids with other people. We were not that couple. We were always with our kids, were always with us. So like I said, it's I had to put my kids, sometimes I bought them a table and they would draw with me. And then they love it when I draw for them. So I would draw them with a Sharpie marker, nice and black and bold, and I would draw them a picture of whatever, and they would sit next to me and they would color and draw or draw with me. And while I'm doing my freelance work, so
Yeah.
I'm drawing whatever, or I'm working on some projects or whatever, they're thinking that I'm coloring with them. They think I'm drawing with them. They think I'm a part of this, but in reality, it's like I got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
You don't understand that, but to them, it felt like Dad was a part of this, and I felt like they felt like we were all together in this, and we were all here. Um, but again, they didn't really see the urgency behind what I was doing, because again, it was fast or famine or whatever we call it, but
Yeah.
it's like it was really
Feast or famine,
feast
baby.
or famine. Yeah. So it was just,
Yeah.
they didn't understand that. But I mean, they never not had Dad there. They always had access to me at any time. And, they come over here and they would, I would put Jack Johnson on and knock them out, and they would fall asleep right here next to me, or they
Yeah.
somewhere, somehow I was always around with them. So that, I never let them feel like I was too busy, or Dad was always at work, and so, which was kind of my case. My dad was always working and stuff, so I was able to get in some serious troubles, that way. And so I think with me, I was always around them, and I was
Yeah,
able to give
makes
them
a
that
big
attention. So
difference. Some people don't think it does, but parents playing a
yeah,
lot, in their kids' lives
100%,
make a big difference
100%.
for sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Todd, this is brilliant. I'm glad you like it, Todd. There, like I
Thanks,
said,
Todd.
this is some great talk. And I try to do that every week. Bring great talk. Mr. Roberto Carlos is one of the best to do it.
Oh, you're a
Yes.
sweetheart. You know what? Let me tell you a story about Robert, man. Robert, he was one of the designers that we hired at Jack Pacific, and I hired him over there, man. And I think his skills were just so intensely cool. He was doing boys action, and he was one of those ones that I gave him. I gave all my team projects to work on, and then I gave him Disney princesses to work on, because he's a boy toy designer, and I gave him the Disney princess. But you know what? This is the challenge that I love, that Rob went in and did it. He actually like met the challenge, and then he actually developed some of the best Disney princess products that Disney had seen. I mean, it was just incredible. So I shout out to Rob, man. It was good dude, man. I really love Rob.
Roberto, we may need to talk. So
Rob's
let's
good dude.
connect on LinkedIn as well, for sure. Everybody, like I said, we've been having an amazing conversation. We are going on an hour and a half, as we
Oh
always
wow,
do.
not fast, huh?
Like I said, it goes by quick.
Yeah, it does.
And like I said, as I try and bring this plane in, it has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
I very rarely get through all the questions. I always scratch the surface, but it does, like I said, allow me to ask you to come back. Like I said,
Awesome,
to the
brother.
show, you're always welcome back on the show,
Be an
and
honor,
back
Don.
in
Thank
the
you.
studio, for sure. I do want to kind of close it out with you. What's that one gem you want to leave people with? Especially creators at this time. What's that one thing you want to tell creators?
Hmm. Um, I would say, don't be afraid to try to express your creative voices. I think a lot of creatives tend to just be content and are too afraid to take a risk. I think we need to have more risk takers. I think that especially in this age of AI and all the crazy stuff, that a lot of people are scared of, their careers. I heard a lot of illustrators talk about, oh, it's the end of my career with AI, or this and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? Like, challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself, adapt. Don't be afraid of what's coming. Like, just embrace what's coming, and be a part of it, and make a difference, man. Have your creative voice. Don't let things like that scare you. Like, have your creative voice, and each one of you have been gifted with something amazing that you guys can contribute to our industry. And be bold about it. Like, don't be shy to share it. Some of you guys have been drawing in your sketchbooks since I've remembered, and nothing's been put out. Put a book out, put something simple out,
Yeah.
put a blog out that just has all your images. Don't just put a Coraflot or a state art station. No, I mean, put out something that's yours. That's something that you are building and creating for yourself. Again, utilize the platforms that are available to you. Bring your vision out, and don't keep it closed up, man. You guys got a lot of talent out there, and you guys got to, bring it out. Don't hide behind your paychecks or your corporate jobs. You really do something. I think that our industry is really in need of new and fresh vision and direction, man. We a lot of things are copycat. A lot of things are, just not fresh, man. We need some fresh brains out there to really bring out some really fun stuff. So don't be afraid to bring out that book and really bring out stuff that you really have a passion for. That's what I would say.
Yep. And you know it.
And also, one last thing, I do say that with a lot of love and respect, because I know a lot of you guys are out there hustling, doing your thing, but I do want to encourage that's something you guys start taking in consideration, is to, come out of your studios, you know what I mean, and out of your sketchbooks, and really bring something out. Go to a convention, get a booth.
Yeah.
Show your stuff out there. Let people know that you exist.
Yeah.
Your voices are just as important. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and
much love.
I say all of that to say, you don't know what opportunities come out when you put yourself out there. You put yourself out there for opportunities to come to you. So that's why I say I agree. Put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because you're not going to get seen otherwise.
That's right.
For sure. Man, this has been a great episode. I always enjoy these, for sure. Carlos, like I said, I cannot thank you enough for being a part of the Color of Motion family, for coming on the show, for connecting with me in the first place, and for really making this an amazing, amazing episode.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. I appreciate the time. Thank you for even having me here, man. And just, this is awesome. And I'd love to come back for a part 2. That'd be pretty awesome. So
the invitation is always open. All you got to do is say, "Hey, Don, I want to come back on the show." Sure.
Awesome.
We'll find a date.
Thank
That's
you,
all
Don.
you got to do.
I appreciate you, Don.
If you could hang out for a second while we close this out,
Yep.
Make sure that you guys connect with Carlos. Check out more of his work, because, like I said, I only showed a little bit of it, but you can connect with him on all his channels here, LinkedIn, where we connected. Where we connect, well, there's more down there. Check out his site, Instagram. Check out his Instagram pages, both personal and Red Raven Studios. Like I said, they're doing some amazing things, and definitely want you to check out more of his stuff there. Like I said, this has been the funnest episode there, for sure, and I cannot wait, Carlos, to have you back on the show. Might get back on before season 5 ends, the way it's going.
All right.
So this has been an amazing episode. If you could hang out in the green room for just a second while I close out the show, so we can talk a minute, I'd appreciate it. But everybody, please help me thank my guest and friend again, Carlos, for stopping by the show and really bringing the fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Hang out for a second, Carlos, while I close this puppy out. Man, oh man, this has been season 5 has just been on fire. If you haven't checked out any of the episodes of season 5, this has just been a fire season. And so you definitely do not want to miss out. I cannot thank Carlos again enough for coming on and making this a great show, for sure. Like I said, we've been rolling along. Next week is no exception. We're going to have some great guests next week. I definitely don't want you to miss out. Next week, we welcome Nathan Wilkes and Tony Matthews, co-producers of Timmy's World. fun little educational cartoon for kids. So it's going to be a fun show. So definitely don't want you to miss out on that. Well, with that, I think I can close this one out. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time, as always, on this Saturday afternoon. Miss Maggie, I appreciate you stopping by and tuning in. I appreciate all my viewers for stopping by and tuning in. Definitely have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great and productive week. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.